This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time. Content presented in the following podcast is for information purposes only. Views and opinions expressed in this podcast are solely those of the host and guest and may not represent the views and opinions of the Whole Care Network. Always consult with your physician for any medical advice, and always consult with your attorney for any legal advice. And thank you for listening to the Whole Care Network.
I've had groups where an individual comes in tearful, they're very upset, they feel lost, they feel like they're looking for someone, or they don't know what to do. And if it's someone, especially someone I built rapport with over time, and I know them and they recognize my face, I'll invite them into music, and within a song or two, they're no longer tearful, they're actively participating, they're engaging in the music, maybe they're singing, maybe they're tapping their toes. There's a lot there, and that can work on us as well.
This is the Heart of Hospice podcast with Helen Bauer. Tara Jenkins is my guest today, talking with me about harmony in dementia and how they're creating meaningfully supported musical connections one song at a time. Whether you're a family caregiver or an end-of-life professional, the Heart of Hospice is here to enhance your hospice experience by connecting you with information you can use about end-of-life care.
Today's episode is sponsored by Odonata Care. Odonata's motto is, "Care is treatment." They have a mission to transform the end-of-life experience for the patient and caregivers through education and support. Odonata Care is revolutionizing the hospice experience with their booklet, The Care Plan, A Path to Comfort for the Hospice Patient, along with 50 free YouTube videos that teach the basics of bedside care. Visit thecareplan.net for more information. The sponsor for this episode of The Heart of Hospice is National HME. National HME is a direct service hospice durable medical equipment company. Using their proprietary software, Hospice Cloud Pro, providers can enter new patient information, order equipment, arrange pickups, and obtain real-time reporting, including order status and much more. National HME excels at providing service with care and empathy. To learn more, visit nationalhme.com. Now, here's today's episode.
I love the topic and the guest I had today. Tara Jenkins is a board-certified music therapist. She's a certified dementia practitioner and a Montessori dementia care professional with experience working in dementia care since 2007. She's the co-author of a book called Music, Memory, and Meaning, How to Effectively Use Music to Connect with Aging Loved Ones. And she's the founder of Harmony in Dementia, which is what our conversation focused around today. They provide group and individual music therapy services, music consultation services, and music workshops and training for older adults, caregivers, students, and professionals. She's so passionate about what she does and so dedicated to the people that she is providing music services for. She's going to be sharing the ways that music can help people with dementia. She's also going to share with you some ways to discover which of the musical genres a person with dementia might like, because a lot of times our folks with dementia can't communicate. They're nonverbal, a lot of them, or they don't have reality-based conversations and can't answer questions. So she's going to tell us how you can discover which type of music that person might like. Tara also is talking about how music helps caregivers. And we've got 55 million plus caregivers across the United States, unpaid caregivers. And Tara's got some ideas for caregivers about how they can use music to improve their caregiving experience and promote their own well-being in addition to the person that they're caring for. She also talked with me about her self-care, because we all know that when you work in a care profession, self-care is vitally important, not just to survive the workday, but to thrive and to be healthy. And she's going to be sharing some of her self-care practices that are pretty cool too. So here's my conversation with Tara Jenkins of Harmony in Dementia. Tara, welcome to the Heart of Hospice podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's so great to be with you. So we're going to start with an icebreaker question, but of course I'm going to relate it to music because that's your thing. And I figured, let's talk about music. So if you were going to design an end of life playlist for yourself, for someone to play for you while you're dying, and maybe you already have one, knowing the work that you do, what music would you include on there?
Oh man, that is a really tough question. I don't have one, but now I'm thinking I should make one. It's a great question. I'm actually going to pull up my phone so I can pull up specific songs, but that's something my husband, is always like, what's your favorite or your top three? And it's always hard for me to pick a small amount when it comes to any type of media, but especially music. But off the top of my head, Fool in the Rain by Led Zeppelin. I would love that one to be on there.
I love it.
I love that song. Jack Johnson has a song called Bubble Toes, which is one that like my brother and I connected with. So I would put that one on there. Our wedding song was I Can't Help Falling in Love with You. So I'd put a version of that on there. It's an Elvis song, but yeah, there are a lot of versions out there. So I would probably add that one. I really like a band called Beirut. So I'd put some of their music on there as well. So yeah, it would be a very diverse playlist for sure. But off the top of my head, those would probably be some of the top choices.
That's awesome. Is your husband a music person too? Or is he going to have to rely on what you tell him?
Yeah, he enjoys music. He knows I like a lot of different kinds of music. He played trumpet, so he was musical growing up, and in college he was in marching band. But yeah, his profession is he's a video game designer. So we're both creative, just in different ways. So he knows a lot we've been together a while, and a lot of those songs I've listed, he knows are songs I really enjoy. Sweet Judy Blue Eyes is another one that I would probably put on there. I'm like, ones are like popping into my head as I'm like thinking here, but it would definitely be an eclectic list. And that comes from my dad was a drummer and very eclectic in his musical taste. So growing up, he would just put on records for me at night. And so he listened to all styles of music. And so I think that really influenced what I enjoy. And now that I work with individuals, I'm learning a lot of music. So it's a lot of music I know, but it's also music I'm hearing for the first time if they're requesting something I don't know. So
it's kind of cool that you're growing in your musical taste through your work. Mm-hmm. When we get a chance to do that in our work. So now you have a to-do, you have a task on your advanced care planning. So to include a playlist. I have playlists in my phone and I think, this would be perfect for that. And then I look and it's 300 songs. Mm-hmm. And I think, maybe that's too many. How long is it going to take me to die? That just sounds like it might be too much. So it's great that you brought up your music that's related to some special memories that you have, one with your brother, and then, of course, your wedding song. So it goes right into what we're going to be talking about today is your work with Harmony in Dementia.
Yeah. So a little bit just about my career. I'm a music therapist, and for the last 17 years, I have been working in dementia care in various roles. So I was an activities director doing music therapy along with all the other responsibilities of activities. I designed a full-time music therapy program in a long-term care community where I did group and individual services, and I worked with the hospice that was contracted to come in. So I would get referrals from them to work with folks. And then I was in private practice, and all of this was in the Washington, D.C. area. And then about 7 years ago, I moved here to Austin and worked for a company. And then little over, I guess, a year and some change, a year and a couple months, I decided to go back into private practice. And that's when I kind of revamped it and changed the name to Harmony in Dementia. And really the focus is, when you think of harmony, you need a group of singers or instrumentalists to produce a chord, and you can't do it alone. And so that's really what I feel when you're caring for people living with dementia and caregivers. It's a whole village. It's a whole team. Everybody relies on one another. And so it takes a team of people working together, and that can change moment to moment, just like music, can change with dynamics and all of that. So that's kind of where the name is based. And the real goal is to spread awareness, not only about the benefits of music, but to also provide access to creative and meaningful experiences with caregivers, professionals, students, and individuals living with dementia. So through my work as a music therapist, I provide group and individual services. I provide consultation work. So it might be a caregiver calling to say, hey, I'm caring for mom in the home and I really want to use music, but I'm not sure where to start. Or this time of day is really challenging. Can music help? So I might consult that way. I might consult with an activity director on, helping train volunteers. So if there are volunteers who want to use music, they can't do music therapy because we are trained and credentialed and, all of that. But there's so much that you can still do to utilize music and care with individuals living with dementia and hospice care. There's so many benefits there. So I want to make sure that awareness is being spread, but that people are trained and educated so they know the benefits as well as what to look out for if something doesn't work. Because music experiences aren't universal for everyone. So I do a lot of education in my private practice as well as clinical services.
I love that. There's a lot of research that's been done about the benefits of music for everyone in end-of-life care, but especially dementia, Alzheimer's patients. Mm-hmm. So the work that you're doing is really amazing and so helpful. So let's dig in really deep there. When you're talking about providing music for someone that has dementia, so say they're at the point where they can't communicate with you, mm-hmm. An organized thought, how do you find a starting place? How do you know what genre of music to use?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've got 4 or 5 different avenues you can go down and different things you can try. Of course, the first is asking the individual directly. And even if they can't communicate and create, say, I like Elvis, you might be able to guess and check. So that's a great place to start too. So just trying music from when they were younger. There's a lot of research that music from when we're younger stays with us the longest. So late teens, early 20s. So if someone was around 80 years old today, that would, if I'm doing my math correctly, would put us in the early 60s for the music that they might connect the strongest to. So that's a great starting point. And then doing that guess and check. Okay, this is the music that might be important to them. Let's look up the top hits of 1961. Or if they grew up, I'm currently in Austin, Texas. So a country is very big here and a very specific style of country. So I might look up country artists from the 60s. So mm-hmm. that is one thing you can try. Another thing is asking that individual's family and friends. So, if they have family and friends involved in their care who are visiting, asking them what music they recall that individual enjoying, or did they go to concerts together? Did they do any type of music activity? Did they dance together? And what music did they dance to? That kind of a thing. Also thinking about what music was playing in the home while they were growing up. So again, that goes back to family and friends, but if that is on file anywhere, I always say documenting music preferences ahead of time. You asking about a playlist, I advise that, and I haven't done it for myself, but it is something I recommend that you jot down your music preferences, and if you have memories associated with it, because it is helpful when you might no longer be able to communicate. Another good way is exploring someone's music collection. So again, it kind of depends where you're caring for them, but if you're caring for someone in the home, do they have a record collection? If they're in a long-term care community, are there CDs that maybe family and friends have brought in? Maybe they don't live close by, but they've wanted to leave music. So that's another great place to start. And what's great about, if you think about CDs or records with album covers, sometimes that can bring back a memory. So seeing that album cover of a particular artist, they might see John Denver and they might light up because they recognize John Denver's face. So then maybe try Country Roads, maybe try Annie's Song, or, some of his big hits, and see if that connects with folks. And that's really, those are the big ways I would start, the big highlights. And then of course, documenting, writing down what music is effective, writing down music. Sometimes individuals are tearful, and I say those can be happy and sad tears, and that's okay. Sometimes individuals living with dementia, that's the only way they can express themselves. If they don't have their words, if they no longer have words, sometimes they need to express that emotion. They need that release. So it's a lot of assessment in the moment, and that's where consulting a music therapist and the training and education I provide, if that becomes constant, that's when you want to seek help, because there might be something else going on. That might be a particular song. I always use the example Danny Boy, because it's a song that is rooted for a lot of folks who have Irish heritage. It's a very important song, but it's also a song that's used a lot at funerals. So it might be a song that is on someone's preferred music list, but it could take them to maybe a family member's death. And so that could be emotional. It might bring them to that feeling, that emotion. And so it's just things to be aware of. And if that individual can't communicate, then we really need to communicate with each other, the folks that are helping care for that individual. And that's why documentation, I think, is so important, because you want to know what music they enjoy, but you also want to know what music might bring up some of these complex emotions, and then how we can kind of process that.
Yeah, things that are sort of triggers, really.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd say that I did a webinar yesterday. Someone was asking about playing music in common areas in long-term care. And I was saying, there's advantages and disadvantages. One thing is, if music is playing all the time, like 24/7, you can become desensitized to it and start tuning it out. So it's important to have rest and breaks and times of silence. And that's important for all of us, no matter what our ages are. We don't constantly want all of this stimulation, but also it's something to look out for if an individual is all of a sudden, it feels like it came out of nowhere, that they're having a tough time, or they're frustrated, or they're aggravated, and it's during a meal time, and that's usually not a time that they become frustrated. Is there music playing? A lot of people don't think about that, but could the music be the thing that's frustrating them? A lot of times we talk about all of the great benefits of music, and I love championing that, but I think it's important to mention too that, folks living with dementia can have reactions to music just like you or I can. We might be in the grocery store and hear a song that we don't care for, or it brings us to a certain place and we don't want to hear it. And we can ignore it, or we can walk outside. But a person living with dementia doesn't necessarily have the ability to be able to process in that way and to be able to manage it, if that makes sense.
Yes. That's interesting. That is so interesting. So the time period that you're talking about where the music is important from their, what did you say, late teens and early 20s, that's the reminiscence bump.
Yeah, definitely. So that's that time period where those connections will stay the strongest, and music is centered throughout our brain. So even when the damage from plaques and tangles, if you're talking specifically about Alzheimer's, or just the damage from dementia, music, since it's multisensory, our neurons continue to fire till they make a connection. So that's why sometimes too, an individual might not be able to speak, but they can sing. So that's one of the reasons why that's possible. And so that's another reason why music, especially towards later stages in life and at end of life, can be so beneficial, because it's one of the last things we can respond to. And it's one of the first things we respond to in the womb as well.
It's interesting. So it's funny that you're talking about this, about how dementia patients process and the neurons fire. I had a hospice patient that I took care of who was 101, and she had no organized reality-based thought at all, but she could still talk and she could still walk. She was very shaky, but the really unique thing was that she could play the piano.
Yeah.
She could play the piano. She had been doing it. In fact, her daughter was a music teacher in elementary school, and mom had been playing the piano for, not 101 years, but quite a long time. And she could still access that. And she actually enjoyed it, was something that she took pleasure from. But it was interesting that she kept that one particular skill, that one particular ability, but she was incontinent, things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I say a lot of times in my work, I'm very fortunate because music can bring out so many positive interactions and so many positive experiences. Like someone can play piano. Maybe they didn't know that, they moved to long-term care and they don't have family and friends to give that information, and you sit them down next to a piano or you give them an instrument. I bring drums and lots of different percussion instruments and things in my sessions, or, somebody sings. And yeah, there's something really beneficial about that. We can see what those individuals are still capable of, especially because a lot of times in long-term care, there's a lot of focus on what they can no longer do. So yes. How can we bring in, not my favorite focus, but yeah, unfortunately, when someone gets a diagnosis and they're told the things they can no longer do or the things they're not able to do, music can still provide choice. Music can still provide expression. Music can still provide, all of these things that maybe are taken away from other parts of their life, they can get back through music.
Isn't that a nice thought? That we can actually give someone who's dealing with those issues, memory, confusion, all the stuff related to their mental capacity, and we give them a sense of control over one small thing. Mm-hmm. Isn't that nice? Because I don't know that we can say that much about too many other things.
Yeah, definitely.
This episode is sponsored by Odonata Care. Odonata Care founders Nancy Hireman and Brenda Kazire have crafted a 32-page booklet called The Care Plan, A Path to Comfort for the Hospice Patient. Here's what certified hospice and palliative care nurse Helen Bauer says about the Odonata Care booklet.
As an end-of-life educator and advocate, I'm always on the lookout for great resources to share with caregivers and anyone dealing with a serious illness. The Care Plan from Odonata Care has features that users can access anytime they need it. There's information about the symptoms we commonly manage at end of life, like pain, anxiety, shortness of breath, and secretions. Caregivers can use the Care Plan's tracking forms for medications and write down specific instructions for their loved ones. There's even a section on how to use meds safely and appropriately. The Care Plan from Odonata Care is the perfect bedside resource for caregivers.
You can purchase copies of the Care Plan for yourself or your hospice agency at thecareplan.net. A new Spanish edition is also available for purchase on their website in either print or digital versions. The sponsor for this episode of The Heart of Hospice is National HME. National HME is a direct service hospice durable medical equipment company that's serious about providing excellent service through communication and coordination for providers and families. They aim to be an extension of the hospice care team and to make DME the easiest part of the hospice provider's day. Using their proprietary software, Hospice Cloud Pro, providers can enter new patient information, order equipment, arrange pickups, and obtain real-time reporting on their order status, plus much more. National HME also provides text message notifications which keep everyone up to date on when the equipment will be delivered. National understands how important communication is when it comes to every aspect of a hospice patient's care. Here's Chris Maglioka, Senior Vice President of Business Development, describing how National HME technicians stay connected with patients and families.
The family will know through text messaging when the technician's on their way. They'll actually know the technician's name. So, we get the order, our call center calls that patient's family and lets them know, we received the order from the hospice, we'll be out there this afternoon. The technician will contact you with an ETA, and then again, they're going to get that next phone call plus a text message from the technician introducing themselves, letting them know who they are, and then with their ETA. It all starts and ends with the communication part.
National HME does more than just provide equipment. They provide service with care and empathy. To learn more about the services provided by National HME, you can visit their website at nationalhme.com.
So I want to talk about how you work with caregivers. Okay. We know the effects that music has on our patients, right? It's amazing. It's a gift.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But tell me about your work with caregivers and what you do
Sure.
with them to, in turn, support the people that they're taking care of.
Yeah, so the one thing I always try to remind folks is you don't have to be musically inclined to receive the benefits of music. Music can influence our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors. And there's a lot of research that shows that music can activate diverse brain networks, and those include cognition, emotion, motor control, and attention. So, when you're focusing music on yourself or for a caregiver, some of the highlights are, one is just a positive impact on well-being and improved mood. So if you're listening to your favorite music, our brains will release chemicals like dopamine, so the feel-good chemical, and serotonin, the happy chemical. And so that's one reason you might feel energized after listening to your favorite song. So going back to playlists, if a caregiver creates a playlist for themselves, I know now a lot of times people have playlists they wake up to, or a song that plays for their alarm. Currently in my household, we're debating on what that song should be. But,
it's not the same for everybody.
Yeah, exactly. But some people have music to kind of get ready for bed, songs that maybe are going to put them in like a calmer place or a more relaxed place. And again, what's relaxing and calm to one person might not be to somebody else. A lot of times people assume classical music. And the example I always like to give is I went to a conservatory, I played French horn. There are certain pieces of classical music that trigger not so great feelings because I was very anxious when I played them.
Right.
So it's just that reminder that it's different for everyone. But if you're listening to your favorite music, just listening to it alone, you can get some of these benefits. Another way is decreasing anxiety and managing stress, which we all have, but especially as a caregiver, there's a lot of added anxiety and overwhelming feelings and stress and everything that goes with that. So when I define relaxing music for this particular area, it's music with a slow tempo, music with a low pitch and without lyrics. And you can kind of search for that on Spotify. There's a lot of different artists and people who do music specifically for this. And if you're listening to this type of relaxing music, it has been shown to reduce stress and anxiety. I really like, there's an individual called Garth Stevenson, and a lot of his music is instrumental, and I've heard it in yoga. When I practice, yoga instructors will use his music. So he's a great one. Liquid Mind is another one that is by an individual who curates playlists based on sleep, based on relaxation. So that's another one. And he is kind of big in the music therapy community with the research he's done. So Liquid Mind is the kind of the name of the series, and he has lots of different series. So that's another one I like to plug. But another way to reduce stress and anxiety is through singing. Again, when we sing, our brain is releasing dopamine and serotonin, and the hormone oxytocin. And so that can be released when you're singing. And so that hormone can help relieve stress and anxiety. So you don't have to sing for performance. It can be singing in the shower. It can be singing in the car. It can be singing when no one's listening. I don't want people to think, okay, I have to go join a choir.
Oh, I think that would actually raise the anxiety, the performance part.
Exactly. And it does for me too. Not so much in my work, but if I was thinking of like strictly performing, like for the sake of performance, yeah, I'm similar. But just thinking about it in those terms as more as recreation or to let out frustration. Sometimes, if I've had a really hard day, on my way home, I might blast Fool in the Rain's a great example. I might blast that because it's a song I love to listen to loud. I'll put all the windows down and I'll sing at the top of my lungs. So, so that's just an example there. Another way is a motivator for exercise and movement. So stamina and motivation, there's a lot of research behind this as well. It can be improved when listening to music during exercise activities and workout. And so when you're working out, if you synchronize your movements or your stride to the rhythm of a particular song, you might find you can go longer or further than you might have done in silence. And again, that's preferences. So it's all about what preferences you like as far as music. And some people prefer, I've talked to people that are like, oh, I can't exercise or I can't focus if there's music on. But it is one that if music is a motivator for you, it probably will be for exercise as well. So it's a good way to kind of encourage movement, even if it's just a walk around the neighborhood. Or caregivers, they might not have that much time in their day. Do they have stairs in their house? Maybe you put on a song and it's a 3-minute song and it's just going up and down the stairs at your own pace, but just to get some movement and exercise that's for you versus for what you're doing for the individual you're caring for. And then the last one I will mention that's kind of a big one is regulating your heart rate and breathing. So when you use music with intention, you can actually regulate and lower your heart rate and your blood pressure, as well as slow your breathing. And that all increases when we're stressed. So that's something that you can try on your own. You can try it with a heart rate monitor, but again, you can find some of those slower tempoed songs, or you can do it even without music. You can just do, breathing in through your nose, counting to 4, hold for 4, and then breathe out. And sometimes it's breathing out for 4. That's boxed breathing because it's even. But there are different relaxation and breathing activities where if you're starting to get stressed or anxious, just doing that breath along to a song or along to your own counting will slow your heart rate. And there have been times where I've been in for a procedure or something where I have a heart monitor on in, a hospital room. And my husband doesn't like when I can do this, but I was like, look what I can do. And I'll slow my heart rate down.
Oh, I knew where you were going with that.
Yeah.
And as a nurse, I would say, shame on you. Don't play with us like that.
I know. But normally my heart rate is fast, so it needs to be slowed down because I'm nervous. So it is a good thing.
Right.
But yes, it's don't do it as a prank, but do it. But it's definitely something that can be beneficial along the way, especially in the moment. I know for me, sometimes I do it if I'm standing in line at the grocery store. I'm annoyed it's taking so long, or, I'm frustrated in traffic or something like that. And it's a great time to include breathing, whether it's with or without music.
Yeah, I love it that it all comes back to the mind, body, spirit connection. So you have these physiological reactions that you're not even aware of. Your endocrine system is releasing these hormones and letting them surge out into your system to feel good, combat the wear and tear of the things that cause anxiety and keep your blood pressure up and keep your heart rate up. And all you're doing is enjoying some music.
Yeah.
How simple is that? I think that's pretty amazing. I find myself singing and not realizing it. All of a sudden you have this energy, and I am definitely a music person when I work out. And I always have thought of it as the music is keeping me company and helps keep me distracted from the work part of the workout.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what it's really doing is helping me manage my heart rate and giving me energy and making me enthusiastic and releasing the good hormones. Yeah. It's a pretty amazing system that it does that.
Yeah, definitely. And music as redirection is huge in my work, thinking of music as a distraction or a redirection. A lot of times, I've had groups where an individual comes in tearful, they're very upset, they feel lost, they feel like they're looking for someone, or they don't know what to do. And if it's someone, especially someone I built rapport with over time, and I know them and they recognize my face, I'll invite them into music, and within a song or two, they're no longer tearful, they're actively participating, they're engaging in the music, maybe they're singing, maybe they're tapping their toes. There's a lot there, and that can work on us as well. That's not just for individuals living with dementia, but for all of us.
I love the way you say invite them into the music.
Yeah.
It's like come sit by me. I'll share this with you. I love that. So obviously you have a lot of experience doing that. Can you share a time with me and my listeners about something very memorable or intense for you when you were working with someone who was dying?
Yeah, so I've done some hospice work through my years as a music therapist. I've never been there for the transition, but I've been there while someone's actively dying. So I've been there in, you know, the last days, the last moments in that sense. And one story, an experience that really comes to mind with me is a client that I had seen for several years. So we had a very strong rapport. She recognized me as soon as I'd come in. I saw her for individual services. And so I knew her music preferences very well, which became extremely beneficial towards the end of life when she could no longer communicate. A lot of times she was non-responsive. So I was using the music that I knew she enjoyed, that she expressed that she enjoyed when she was able to. So that's what's really great. If you do have a music therapist that kind of follows an individual through their journey, that can be really beneficial. And it was with this specific client. And during one of my last visits, it may have even been my last visit. I can't recall now because it was a year or two ago, but it was one of the last visits I had with her. She was unresponsive. And, you know, I never know when I'm going to make a connection. So, you know, I'm always trying different things. And so I came in, I shared some of her favorite songs, and one of them was Over the Rainbow. So I sang that song, and a lot of times in hospice, we'll strip it down. So maybe I'll just sing with my voice, but no guitar, you know, so you try different things to see what an individual needs in that moment. And so as I sang, I held her hand and just my voice singing. She opened her eyes, made brief eye contact with me, and squeezed my hand lightly. And it was a very quick moment. It was very powerful. It was very emotional. And it was a great reminder for me, going back to, I never know when I'm going to make a connection. And that's why I do what I do, you know, because I was able to give her that moment. And she was able to give that moment to me too. It was just as beneficial for me as it was for her, I think.
Yeah. I mean, anybody who works in end of life will tell you that. If you're paying attention, you learn from your patients. They change who you are. They change us for the better. We are gifted with so much. What a privilege it is to be witnessing this woman as she's doing the labor of dying, and she takes a moment to pause and let you know, I know you're here. I hear you.
Yeah.
I hear you. Amazing. Amazing. And, you know, anybody can do that. We can play music.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It can be on Spotify. You don't have to have a guitar. I can't play a guitar. You wouldn't necessarily have a piano in a patient's room, but you could definitely sing or even hum. I love that idea of making that connection. So the work that you do is intense at times, right? When you work with people who have serious illness, people with dementia, there's a lot of wear and tear that comes to us as professional caregivers, which is part of your role as a music therapist. How do you find yourself affected by the work that you're doing and the way you're taking care of people?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm really grateful. A lot of people, when you're in your education, a lot of music therapists work with lots of different groups of folks, like not just one. And then there are a lot of us who specialize. So it really depends on the individual. And a lot of people told me, well, you'll probably get burned out at some point. And I find I get exhausted, I get emotionally drained, but I know I found the group of folks I want to work with. And so for me, I don't necessarily have that piece of like the burned out feeling like I can't do this work anymore. But yeah, I definitely get emotionally exhausted. I definitely get physically exhausted sometimes, but my clients also really energize me. I will say, I think we all have those thoughts that's like, am I doing the right thing? Well, maybe I should just go and every now and then I'll casually have a thought that's like, maybe I should just go and do something different with my career.
Right.
And then I'll have a session. And then I come out of that session and I'm like, why would I do anything else? So for me, it's like I'm constantly validated by my clients and I'm energized by them. And it's this really give and take. But for me, it's also the connections. For me, it's about the rapport. It's about building relationships. And that's what's so important to me. And that's what I also want to give to the people I work with, whether it's students, whether it's professionals, whether it's caregivers or people living with dementia. I want to give them that moment of peace, that moment of connection, that moment of recalling that they danced the twist in their living room, whatever it is. It doesn't always have to be a groundbreaking moment. It could be something that's lighthearted and silly, but to give that back, I think it is really important.
I love that. So in giving that to your patients and your students and the caregivers that you educate and support, you receive back something even better that sort of renews your enthusiasm for doing the work in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely does.
Yeah. And so we have a lot of end-of-life professionals and people that work in care professions that listen to the podcast. And that's a really important thing for them to remember. Let your patients, let your clients help you remember your why.
Yeah. And that's definitely challenging. I don't want to say I don't have those moments where I don't remember the why, because I do.
Right. Yeah,
I do,
we all
and
do.
I think we all do. Yeah,
sure.
We all have those moments. But yeah, I think the why is the most important, and the why is also, the passion. It's why I can talk about this topic for hours.
Yeah.
Is because of the experiences I've had through these 17 years. In a variety of different places and people and all of that.
Yeah, those are the memories and things that you pull up when you're having to document. And
yes.
I'm like, I hate this. Why did I ever get into this business? I don't want to do this.
This isn't what I want to be doing.
Yes. And then you remember, I had this fantastic connection with this patient that I'm documenting on. Oh, thank God I can get through this,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
We all have to have our tank refilled. And I think our patients forget that they do that. Not every patient does that, right? Some of our cases are harder than others, but an amazing thing. So I want to ask you, what do you do for self-care when you need to renew that energy that you have for your work?
Yeah. So I give a lot of advice, and sometimes I need to sit and take some of that advice. I will say that.
Sure. I
do a lot of education, and, I'm like, I should be doing that for myself. But for me, it's listening and playing music is a big one. So I gave the example of listening to music in my car, but I have a playlist called Windows Down and Cruisin'. And that's like, if I want all my windows down and I want to be, that's the music I listen to. Sometimes it's going and just sitting outside. I have we have a lot of wind chimes. It's something that I really enjoy quite a bit. So I might sit outside and just listen to the wind chimes. If there's no wind, I'll hit the wind chime. You don't have to have wind to make them.
Yeah, just to hear the sound.
Yeah, but being outdoors for me is really important. I think, connecting to music is important. I also giving myself permission to like veg out on the couch. Sometimes I'm hard on myself for not being productive. And sometimes, that's something that I'm getting better at with listening to my body and listening to myself and saying, no, you have a reason, or, there's a reason why you feel this way, or a reason why you feel tired. Like, it's okay. You can take the 20 minutes, the hour, the day, if you need to. And I think for a lot of us as caregivers, whether it's professional or otherwise, we don't always give ourselves permission. And that's something that's really hard for me, especially when you care for others. I think a lot of times you're putting others first. I think it's just kind of the nature of like what we do. And so you're not always listening to yourself. You're not always listening to what you need. And so I'm trying to learn to be better about that, learning to be kinder to myself. I think that's really important in the self-care journey. There's activities I can do, but it's also, how you're treating yourself and that inner voice and that inner critic. And sometimes for me, that's what needs to be quieted. So sometimes self-care is quieting that inner voice or that inner critic versus, doing a specific activity. So
that's a good point. So when you think about self-care for mind, body, and spirit, that's quieting that voice and reversing it and reframing the language that you're using when you talk to yourself. Yeah. That's great self-care. I think as people who work in care professions, right? Mm-hmm. And that means anybody who works in healthcare, anybody who works in the funeral home industry, all sorts of care professions, teachers, daycare workers, because there's so many of us. We have these expectations that we should never shut that stuff off. Well, heck yes, you should, because how in the world, why would you ever tell one of your caregivers you shouldn't have a non-productive day?
Yeah.
You always need to be doing something. If you lie down on the couch for the entire evening and watch Netflix and eat popcorn, you've wasted all those hours. You should be doing something else. You should be doing laundry, cleaning up your house. We would never tell a client that.
Yes.
So why would we tell ourselves that? We have this standard where we feel like we can't turn it off.
Mm-hmm.
Very unhealthy.
Yeah. And something that's very hard to do. It's something that I'm definitely in the middle of that journey, and some days are better than others. But I think even just giving that reminder to everyone, even if, because it also comes down to being a parent, right? Especially if you're a care profession, I don't have children, but knowing friends who do, you're still not turning it off, because then you're coming home and you're caring for your household, or you're caring for your spouse, or you're caring for a pet. I mean, it really can go, any which way. And so, being able to dedicate time to yourself, or even just being kinder to yourself, I think can go a long way. But it's not something that, I think you're hearing about it more. I think people are more comfortable sharing their journeys with mental health and with self-care than, say 5-10 years ago. But it's still not something that's ingrained in us. Instead, the other, the go, the never turning it off is more ingrained in us. And so it's hard to reverse that sometimes.
It is. It's true. And so many unpaid caregivers, family caregivers, work outside the home.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so they are coming home to that second job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, so Harmony in Dementia is doing some great things. Tell my listeners how they can connect with you, maybe connect with you for the courses you offer or the services that you offer. How can they find you?
Sure. Yeah. So just www.harmonyindementia.com. That's my website, and it'll give you descriptions of services. There's also examples of, interviews, and this podcast will probably appear on there. But I showcase different interviews and things I've done, so you can learn more about me that way and see some testimonials and things. And then that's a way to contact me as well. So you can send me an email through my website if you want to contact me directly. And then at Harmony in Dementia, just all one word kind of spelled out, is all my social media. So I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, and I have a YouTube channel. And so right now we are in Ageism Awareness. It's this Saturday, October 7th. I know this will air later, but just to give an example, I'm doing a lot of videos on ageism and how I, try to, how I might encounter it with my clients in my work and how I try to support them. So, on my social media, I do lots of different short videos, lots of helpful informational posts. So there's a lot of good information there. So even if, you might not be able to have the means to obtain my services right away, there's still a lot of good education and information on those pages.
Awesome. I'll have links in the show notes to all your different social media, your site, so that people can connect with you, see the work that you're doing. I love the idea of the YouTube channel. So if you're a caregiver, turn your computer on for 5 minutes, catch a YouTube video and learn just wonderful stuff. Tara, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much for having me. This was great today.
You can hear her passion just shine through. I can imagine that when it comes my turn to face a serious illness or to care for somebody in my family with a serious illness, I would love to be able to work with Harmony in Dementia and have the services of a music therapist like that. She shared ways about how you can discover the musical genre that a person with dementia might like. A lot of times they're not able to tell us, they're nonverbal. And she talked about how music has to be chosen and curated intentionally and thoughtfully with people with dementia because it can trigger emotions for them. Happy, sad, frustrated, all the different emotional responses that somebody might have. One of the things she said that really struck me is Dementia takes so many things away from patients, people, and music helps to give them back something they've lost. What an amazing thing to be able to say that you do in your work. Give them back a memory, an emotion that feels comfortable, that feels happy, that releases those good hormones. We can't say that about everything that we do in hospice. We would like to be able to say that, right? But dementia steals away the identity. It's an identity thief. It is an identity thief. So I think that being able to give people back a little piece of their identity, what an amazing gift that Tara's music is offering. She also offered ideas for caregivers on how they can use music to help with their caregiving experience. We're talking about 55 plus million caregivers across the United States, unpaid family caregivers. There's a lot of wear and tear that comes with that, right? And the music that they can use to improve their self-care and promote their own health helps them to be healthier people and helps them to be better caregivers. Helps them not to just to survive the caregiving experience, but to thrive while they do it. So you can connect with Harmony in Dementia on harmonyindementia.com. You can access their social media. She's on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube as @harmonyindementia. There's an email for her that I'll give you here, but it's on their website as well. It's contact@harmonyindementia.com. And of course, their website again, harmonyindementia.com. Be sure to catch the next episode of the Heart of Hospice podcast. You can find more episodes on theheartofhospice.com. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You can connect with the Heart of Hospice on Facebook and Instagram and send your questions or comments by email to helen@theheartofhospice.com. And remember, no matter who you are or where you are in your hospice journey, you are the heart of hospice.
This is the Whole Care Network. Helping you tell your story one podcast at a time.